Joe Biden was on the campaign trail in South Carolina Saturday. At his rally in Columbia, the former vice president condemned systemic racism and laws that he says suppress voters of color. Take a listen.
And folks, speaking of dignity, it means we have to protect, which is not happening now, the single most important right you have as an American, the right to vote. The right to vote. And folks, last year, 24 states introduced or enacted at least 70 bills to curtail the right to vote. And guess what? Mostly directed at, quote, people of color. You see it. We got Jim Crow sneaking back in. No, I mean it.
CBS News campaign reporter Bo Erickson wrote about Biden's comments over the weekend. Bo has been traveling with the 2020 candidate and joins me now from Washington. And CBS News political correspondent OKeefe is also with us from Washington. So, Bo, can you tell us more about what Joe Biden had to say on systemic racism and how he proposes to end it?
Well, hi, Elaine. This speech in Columbia on Saturday, we heard a similar message directed at the middle class, which we heard in Iowa and Pittsburgh. But specifically, there were the two new additions here in Columbia. And the first is what you mentioned, is that he warned that Jim Crow was sneaking back in. And the way he wanted to address this was not specifically with proposals, but by posing questions to the group. He used a phrase that former President Obama used to say, and that was in America, if two men apply for a job and one is named Jamal and one is named John, why does John get the job? Another question that he posed to the group was, why does insurance for cars cost different in maybe poor areas? And then another question that I thought was interesting is, where in America do we put garbage dumps? Mr. Biden was making the point that they're not in rich areas, they're not in wealthy areas, they are in poor areas. And what does that mean for the country? So that was just two new ways that he was trying to talk directly to the voters in South Carolina.
Well, Biden also held a fundraiser in South Carolina this weekend where you reported he raised more than $100,000. What more can you tell us about how it went and who was there?
Yeah, and according to an informed source that tells me the fundraiser was a hit and a big success. It was hosted by a state senator there, and it brought together the who's who of South Carolina political life. The mayor of Columbia was there, Steve Benjamin. Also, the past two gubernatorial nominees for Democrats were also there. And then they brought together a lot of lawyers and business people as well. And as I was told, it raised over $100,000. But the main dish on the menu was definitely Biden, because according to federal election law, the budget for this event had to be under $2,000 or else it would be considered a campaign contribution. And so these mostly wealthy individuals were stuck drinking inexpensive wine and domestic beer, and to eat they had teeny pecan pies and tomato pie. And so while they may have left hungry, they did get their main dish on the menu, and that was Vice President Biden, and I'm told that they ate him up.
Okay. Ed's got a question for you, Bo. Go ahead, Ed.
Well,
Yes,
first of all, Elaine, I think Bo becomes the first 2020 campaign trail reporter to appear on this program. So I don't know what he wins for that, but it should be noted. And Bo, if you ever get a source to tell you that the fundraiser was a bust and total failure, that'll be even more interesting. I guess what I'm curious, because I know you have spent the last few days talking to people down there, how does what the vice president enjoys in terms of support and political infrastructure down there compare to some of the other contenders? Is it bigger and better, or is it lagging compared to what others are trying to put together in the Palmetto State?
Well, on Sunday morning, we went to church, and I would say we, the press corps, went to church with Mr. Biden, and it was at the Brooklyn Baptist Church. And this is a big church, so I stood outside the church and talked to tens and tens of congregants before they went in. And they had one name on their mind when they were thinking about who they wanted to support for the Democratic nomination, and that was Vice President Joe Biden. One issue that they think he can specifically address is they want to repeal the Trump administration's tax cuts. They view Mr. Biden's tough language against the president as he is the man who can deliver on that message. It also helps that he has a long history in the state and his name ID is really high. He eulogized both Democratic Senator Fritz Hollins just last month in April, but then in 2003, he also gave a eulogy for Senator Strom Thurmond, a Republican and one-time segregationist.
All right, Bo Erickson in Washington. Bo, thank you.